talk about the beautiful business of milk today, yeah. I got milk. Let's talk about milk. Oh yeah, baby, let's talk about the beautiful business of milk today.
This episode of Got Milk is sponsored by Shunya Agritech, the folks revolutionizing cattle nutrition with hydroponic green fodder. Visit their website at shunya.live for more details or download the Shunya app from Play Store or App Store.
Welcome back, everyone. We're about to take a deep dive into something really interesting today. We're going to be exploring the world of cheese and whey processing.
Sounds delicious.
It is, actually. And we're going to be focusing specifically on Gujarat, India. We found this in-depth report, and let me tell you, it is packed with some fascinating insights.
Oh yeah, this report is really eye-opening, especially when you look at the sheer scale of India's dairy industry. Did you know that their milk production has increased tenfold since 1970?
Tenfold? Whoa.
It's incredible, right? Back then, they were producing around 60 million liters of milk daily. But now, hold on to your hats, because in 2022, it was over 580 million liters.
That's mind-blowing. That's way more than their population growth. Right?
Exactly. It's a testament to how much their dairy industry has evolved. And of course, all of that milk leads to a whole lot of cheese.
And a whole lot of whey, too.
Right. That's the liquid byproduct that's left over after the cheese-making process. You know, for a long time, whey was kind of seen as a problem. Like, how do you get rid of all this stuff? But this report flips that idea completely on its head.
Oh, tell me more.
It frames whey not as a waste product, but as this untapped resource packed with tons of valuable nutrients like lactose, protein, and minerals.
So it's almost like the industry's realizing, wait a minute, we've got this gold mine right here.
Exactly. And they're figuring out all sorts of innovative ways to utilize it. It's a perfect example of the circular economy in action.
Okay, so we have all this milk, all this cheese, and all this whey that's suddenly a valuable resource. Let's talk about where this is all happening, Gujarat. I know it's considered India's milk capital, but what makes it so special when it comes to this whole cheese and whey game?
Well, for starters, their milk production is phenomenal. They have these high-yielding indigenous breeds of cattle and buffaloes like the Gur, Concrej, and Jafrabadi, and they've really invested in their dairy infrastructure.
So they're not starting from scratch. They've got this foundation to build on.
Right. And you can't forget their location. Gujarat is super close to major domestic markets, plus it has export hubs like Mundraport. So think about it. That mozzarella on your next pizza might have actually started its journey in Gujarat.
Wow, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of cheese, what specific types are they focusing on in this report?
Well, the report highlights cheddar and mozzarella quite a bit, which makes sense. Those are in high demand globally. But they also mention cottage cheese and fresh cheese.
Okay, so it's a good mix. And this might be getting ahead of ourselves a little, but I'm already wondering, you know how some regions become known for specific types of cheese? Like a really sharp cheddar or a creamy brie?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Could Gujarat develop its own unique type of cheese? Something that uses those amazing indigenous breeds we talked about.
That is a fantastic idea. It would be amazing to see them create a cheese that really captures the essence of Gujarat. And it ties into that whole sustainability aspect we were talking about earlier, right?
Oh, absolutely. So we've got this abundance of milk, this region that's set up for cheese production, and now this realization that whey isn't a waste product, but a resource. How are they actually putting all of this together? What does this integrated whey processing look like in action?
That's where it gets really exciting. They're finding some pretty ingenious ways to take whey and transform it into a whole range of valuable products.
I'm guessing I've probably had whey without even realizing it.
Oh, I'm sure you have. For instance, they're extracting whey protein that ends up in things like food ingredients, nutraceuticals, even pharmaceuticals.
Really? So that protein shake I had this morning could have contained whey from Gujarat.
It's entirely possible. And they're not stopping at protein. They're also using whey to create lactic acid. And get this, they're even producing bioplastics and dietary fibers from it.
Wow, so they're finding ways to replace things that aren't so good for the environment with something they used to just throw away.
Exactly. It's a win-win all around. Less waste, new revenue streams, and more sustainable products. And on top of all that, they're even using whey to produce biogas.
Which they can then use to power their facilities, right?
Right. It's like they're creating this incredibly efficient system where almost nothing goes to waste. It's pretty inspiring stuff, right?
It really is. But let's get down to brass tacks for a moment. This level of innovation can't come cheap. What kind of financial investment are we talking about here?
That's a great question. Luckily, the report actually lays out a detailed financial plan for a mozzarella cheese and whey processing unit. And the numbers look really promising.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, they break down the costs, covering everything from the equipment, like cheese vats, spray dryers, packaging machines, to all the labor and utilities. And according to their projections, a facility like this could have a very favorable benefit-cost ratio.
So the potential returns really outweigh the initial investment.
Exactly, and that's not even considering the government support that's available.
Oh, right. I know India has been actively promoting growth in their dairy industry.
They have. And it's a big deal for potential investors. The Indian government, at both the national and state levels, has put a lot of incentives in place.
So they're not just talking the talk, they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Precisely. And it seems to be working because Gujarat is already home to some really successful cheese and whey producers, both big cooperatives and smaller companies.
It sounds like a really dynamic industry with lots of different players.
It is. And what's particularly exciting is how much emphasis they're placing on integrated processing. It's not just about churning out cheese, it's about making the most of every single part of that milk, especially that whey, to build a system that's both sustainable and profitable.
Now let's zoom out for a second. We've been talking about all this amazing stuff happening in Gujarat. But what about the global picture? Where does India fit into the world of cheese and whey?
Okay, well, remember that statistic we mentioned earlier about cheese consumption being highest in the USA and Italy being the top importer? Well, that tells us that there's a huge global demand for cheese. And Gujarat, with all of its resources and expertise, is in a fantastic position to meet that demand.
So we could be seeing made in Gujarat cheese on tables all over the world.
It's not out of the realm of possibility, and it wouldn't just be about economic gains. It would also be a chance for them to showcase the quality and innovation that's coming out of their dairy industry.
Okay, so we've got the vision, we've got the players, and we've got the global demand. But what about the nuts and bolts of actually setting up a cheese and whey processing unit in Gujarat? What does someone need to know about all the regulations and approvals?
That's a super important question, and luckily this report dives into all of that. It actually paints a pretty encouraging picture, too.
Okay, break it down for me. What are the essential approvals someone would need to get started?
Well, the first one is registration and licensing from the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, or FSSAI for short. They're like the gatekeepers of food safety and quality, and there are requirements at both the central and state levels.
So the FSSAI is kind of like a seal of approval that says, hey, this cheese and whey is good to go.
Exactly. And because we're dealing with dairy, there are even more specific regulations under the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act of 1954. It's all about making sure that those products are safe and top-notch quality.
Makes sense. You don't want anyone getting sick from a bad batch of cheese. What else?
Right. And then, depending on the size and location of your facility, you might also need environmental clearance from the Ministry of Environment, Forests, and Climate Change. This makes sure your operation is environmentally responsible and isn't having a negative impact.
So there are a few hoops to jump through, but it sounds like it's all for good reason.
Definitely. But now, here comes the good part, the incentives. Remember that Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund, or AHIDF, that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, the one with those really attractive loan terms.
Well, it gets even better. The HIDF provides loans that can cover up to 90% of your project cost. Plus, there's a 3% interest subvention, a 2-year moratorium on repayments, and then a 6-year repayment period after that.
That sounds like a fantastic safety net for anyone wanting to jump into the cheese-making world.
And don't forget the 750 crore credit guarantee. It's a huge help in terms of mitigating financial risk.
It really does sound like the government is serious about supporting this industry. It's like they're saying, we see the potential here, and we're going to do everything we can to help it succeed.
And they're backing it up with action, too. They've also set up the Dairy Processing and Infrastructure Development Fund, which has a massive corpus of 8,004 crores through NABARD.
Wow, they are really pulling out all the stops.
And if that wasn't enough, Gujarat itself has a bunch of its own incentives under the Atmanirbhar Gujarat Schemes 2022, capital investment subsidies, interest subsidies, even net SGST reimbursements.
So it really is a comprehensive package. They've clearly thought this through.
They have. And with all of that, I think we've covered the regulatory landscape and the impressive incentives that are available. What stands out to you the most from all of this?
Let me think. Honestly, I'm just blown away by how much thought and support is going into this industry. It's really impressive. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I'm curious about the companies themselves. Who are the big names in Gujarat's cheese and whey scene?
Well, you can't talk about dairy in Gujarat without mentioning the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation.
Ah, the GCMMF.
That's the one. They're like the dairy giants of India. This massive cooperative is a major force in both cheese and whey production.
Wait, are they the ones behind the Amul brand?
Yep, that's them. Amul cheddar cheese, those little cheese cubes, those convenient cheese slices, all GCMMF. They've got a huge reach, covering something like 18 out of the 33 districts in Gujarat, and their brand recognition is through the roof.
So they're definitely a major player. But are there any other notable companies in the game?
Oh, absolutely. The report also highlights Parag Milk Foods Limited. They're another big name, and they produce both cheese and whey protein. In fact, their whey protein brand, Avatar, is super popular.
Avatar Whey Protein. I like it. Sounds like they're forced to be reckoned with.
They are. Their whey processing capacity is massive. We're talking 10 lakh liters per day. To put that in perspective, the total whey market in India is currently valued at about 6.6 billion.
Wow, that's already a lot.
It is. But get this, by 2027, it's projected to reach nearly 20 billion.
Whoa. Talk about a booming market. What about the cheese market itself? Is that growing at a similar rate?
The cheese market is definitely on the rise, too. Right now, it's valued at about 56.7 billion in India. So there's clearly a lot of room for companies like Parag Milk Foods to grow and expand.
So we've got this exciting mix of cooperatives and private companies all working with this incredible raw material milk and finding these innovative ways to transform it into profitable and sustainable products.
And that's what's so fascinating about this whole story. It's not just about churning out cheese. It's about taking every single component of that milk, especially whey, and making the most of it, creating a system that benefits everyone involved.
It's really incredible. It's like they're turning something that was once seen as a waste product into, well, a gold mine.
Exactly. And it's not just about those big players either. The report mentions other key companies in the cheese and whey processing landscape, like Sabar Cheese and Whey Drying Plant and Flourish Pure Foods.
So it really is a diverse industry, with companies of all sizes making their mark.
It is, and it's really exciting to see the focus on integrated processing. It's not just about making cheese, it's about using every bit of that milk, especially whey, to create a system that is both sustainable and profitable.
Okay, I'm with you there. But let's zoom out for a bit. We've been talking about this booming industry in Gujarat. But what about the bigger picture? Where does India fit into the global landscape of cheese and whey?
That's a great question. Well, remember how we talked about cheese consumption being highest in the USA? And how Italy's the top importer?
Yeah, I remember.
Well, that tells us something really important. It tells us that there is a massive global appetite for cheese, and Gujarat is in a fantastic position to tap into that demand.
So you're saying that with their resources and expertise, they could become a major player on the world stage.
Exactly. Imagine seeing made in Gujarat cheese on tables all over the world. It could definitely happen. And it wouldn't just be about economic gains either. It would be a chance for them to showcase the quality and innovation that's coming out of their dairy industry.
Okay, so we've got the vision, we've got the companies, and we've got the global demand.
Yeah.
But what about the practical stuff? What does an entrepreneur need to know about the actual process of setting up a cheese and whey processing unit in Gujarat? What about all the regulations and approvals?
That's a crucial question, and the report actually goes into quite a bit of detail about it, and it's actually pretty encouraging.
Okay, good. I'm all ears. What are the main things someone would need to get started?
Well, the first and most important thing is getting registration and licensing from the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, or FSSAI. They're basically the gatekeepers of food safety and quality in India.
So the FSSAI is kind of like that stamp of approval that says, hey, this cheese and whey is safe to eat.
Yeah, exactly. And because we're dealing with dairy, there are some extra specific regulations under something called the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act of 1954. It's all about making sure those products are top-notch.
Of course, you don't want anyone getting sick.
Yep.
Makes sense. What else is there?
Right. And then depending on how big your facility is and where it's located, you might also need to get environmental clearance from the Ministry of Environment, Forests, and Climate Change.
Sounds like a pretty thorough process.
It is, but it's all in the name of protecting public health and the environment. And now, for the really exciting part, the incentives.
Okay, I was hoping we'd get back to that.
Remember that Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund, or AHIDF, we were talking about earlier?
Yes, the one with those amazing loan terms.
Well, get this. The AHIDF offers loans that can cover up to 90% of your project cost. And they come with a 3% interest subvention. Plus, you get a 2-year moratorium on repayments, and then a 6-year repayment period after that.
Wow, it sounds like they're really trying to make it as easy as possible for people to get started.
They are. And then there's the 750 core credit guarantee. It's a huge help when it comes to getting funding and dealing with financial risk.
It really shows how serious the government is about supporting this industry.
They are, and it doesn't end there. They've also set up the Dairy Processing and Infrastructure Development Fund. It's got this huge corpus of 8,004 crore through NABARD.
They're not messing around.
Nope. And this fund is specifically for improving processing and value addition infrastructure, which includes all that cheese and whey processing equipment.
So it's like they're saying, we believe in you, go make some amazing cheese.
Exactly. And if all that wasn't enough, Gujarat itself has its own set of incentives under the Atmanirbhar Gujarat Schemes 2022. We're talking capital investment subsidies, interest subsidies, you name it.
Wow, it's like a whole package deal. They've really thought of everything.
They have. And with all that in mind, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the overall regulatory landscape and those impressive incentives?
Honestly, it's incredible, right? All of this is so well thought out. But, as I'm thinking about all of this, there's one question that keeps popping to my head.
Oh, what's that?
Well, the report talks a lot about mozzarella and cheddar cheese, but I can't help but wonder about the potential for other types of cheese.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
Could Gujarat become known for its own, signature cheese? Something totally unique.
No, that is a fantastic question. And honestly, I think it has huge potential. Remember all those incredible indigenous breeds of cattle and buffalo we talked about earlier?
Yes, were amazing.
Imagine a cheese that's made with milk from those animals, capturing those distinct local flavors.
Oh, that would be incredible. A cheese that really represents the region's unique taste.
Exactly. And it wouldn't just be about creating something new and different. It could also open up entirely new markets, both within India and internationally.
Right, because people are always looking for something new and exciting, especially when it comes to food.
Exactly. And let's not forget the sustainability aspect. Sourcing milk locally and working with local farmers would help them create this really sustainable cheese ecosystem.
A win-win for everyone, really. It's good for the economy, it's good for the environment, and it's good for cheese lovers everywhere.
It really is. And it's not just up to the producers to make this happen. Consumers have a huge role to play too.
Oh, absolutely.
By choosing brands that prioritize things like circular economy practices, responsible sourcing, and unique cheese making, we can all contribute to a more sustainable and delicious future.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of cheese, whey, and Gujarat's incredible dairy scene, I want to leave everyone with this thought.
Okay, I'm ready.
Imagine that perfect cheese, the one that captures all the unique flavors and traditions of Gujarat. What could it taste like? What would it be called?
That's a delicious question to ponder.
It is. And who knows, maybe someday soon we'll see that very cheese on a menu somewhere. Thanks for joining us on this cheesy adventure.
I got milk. Let's talk about milk.